Are you using the right tools to create products? Hey, it's Jacob. Welcome to this new video. Today I want to talk about tool selections. And this is crucial if you are going to create products because most people make a lot of mistakes when doing that, but the thing is they don't realize it right away. They realize it down the line. And so basically what ends up happening is you have like your tool here, and then you move forward as fast as possible, and then you end up being here. But the problem is you hit a wall, and then this wall is not, it's not obvious that this wall, you can overcome this obstacle. This obstacle, like this is not an obvious thing. And I'm going to explain why and what are the best way to not get into this problem, right? So the first thing here is why popularity matters when we are selecting a tool. That's one of the main criteria when we are selecting a tool is being widely used. Because if you choose a tool that is widely used, it is going to be more reliable. But why is that the case? It's not necessarily the case because like a lot of people are using it, so it must be reliable. It's not necessarily what I mean by that. It's more like if it is widely used, then there is going to be a lot of resources. So this is super important. Resources, what does that mean? It means like forums. It means a community, basically. It means like easy. It's going to be searchable. Like it's going to be easy to find solution for it, right? So if there are problems, then you're gonna find ways to actually make it more reliable for your own use case. That's one example. And the other thing is also like large language models. So basically all of the new tools like ChatGPT and all of those things, right? Like Grok 3 or all those things, they are going to know about the tool. Because that's because large language model that they are being trained on like what people know about. If it's a brand new tool that nobody has heard about, then they're probably not going to know about it. And it's going to make it a lot more difficult for you to make things reliable and make it a good tool for your use case. Because the thing is, it's extremely rare unless you have a very, very specific tool in mind and a very specific use case that exactly matches the tool, then you'll probably need to tweak it or to do things that are like in your context that are not exactly applicable, and so you're gonna have to work on the tool. And that's where that's kind of like the problem that I have with like selecting different tools like that without necessarily thinking too much about it is you're gonna see it that sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes it's just basically a black box and you cannot get in there. Like this is not doable. You just don't have access to the things that are here and that you need to modify in order to make the tool reliable. So that's kind of like the idea of being reliable. Now, of using a widely used tool to make it more reliable. So now that I talked about like the widely used tools, like what are the potential issues with less popular tools? And one of those issues is going to be like the loss of leverage. So leverage is super important if you are going to create products. Like that's the number one thing that is that's one of the most important thing, right? Because you want to be able to like get ahead of your competition, right? But for that, if you don't have leverage, if you're using like the tools the same way that everybody else uses them, then you're never gonna make why would your company be better than anybody else, right? So in order to get leverage, you're gonna have to customize your tools, and you cannot do that if you're using tools that are less popular, because less popular tools are usually not that good in terms of customization. just because they are, they are very, very focused on a single problem. And we need to think about like more of a larger thing. A very simple example is like using Python. If you're using Python, this is a widely used tool that has been there for a very, very long time, right? So this is reliable, and if you use that, you're not gonna like lose your leverage, because this is customized. This is a programming language that is extremely easy to use. But if you're using tools that have been built on top of Python, for example, then there is a risk that you're going to have to go back and actually create the tool yourself. So this is something to be considered, and making sure that this doesn't happen. Now, I'm not saying that to never use external tools. In fact, there are tons of tools that are really good. However, understanding that there is a trade-off here, where if you're using that type of tool, then you're gonna lose a little bit of leverage. It's fine to lose leverage for if you want to go fast and you know that it's not super important. But if you know that you're gonna keep building on this, then this is not a good idea at all, right? There is another thing as well in terms of like, while we're talking about like speed, it's problem solving. Let me actually clear that up, because this is important. Problem solving or troubleshooting, right? It's the same thing. But here, let me emphasize this one. Problem solving and troubleshooting are things that sometimes are either extremely difficult or not doable at all when you're using a tool that is not adapted to the situation. So problem solving, let's pretend that you can actually do it, right? Let's say, okay, this is something that can be done. It's just a matter of like figuring it out, right? The problem is, because the tool is not adapted for the situation, and the problem that you're having is not probably a widely a problem that a lot of people have when using this specific tool, because it's a subset of a subset, right? Because the people that are using that tool is already a subset by definition, right? Like, we're talking about a tool that is not widely used. And so then among that subset, you have a subset of people that have your specific problem. So what I mean is, it's going to make it extremely slow to troubleshoot. And so if you're gonna work a lot on the tool, then it's going to be slower down the line to actually use that tool and to troubleshoot it again and again and again and again. Then it's going to be slower than just implementing it like from scratch. It's implementing another tool from scratch, because the thing is, when people that know how to work with like very widely used tools like Python, or like any programming language that is widely used, they have like ways to deal with those types of problems, right? Like, there is always a way out, like, because you have so many possibilities. There have been like so many algorithms that you can implement to solve those problems. If we're talking about reliability issues, then there are 10 things you can try, right? But if you have like a specific tool that you cannot tweak that much, then there is like one thing you can try. And then if it doesn't work, well, too bad. Like, you can't really move forward. So that's kind of like the idea here. So let me clear that up, and let's summarize here. So the main things to consider are, if you're gonna choose a tool, are gonna be like future improvements. How much are you gonna use that tool, and how much are you gonna improve it? How much are you going to work on improving the tool, and troubleshooting? How reliable is the tool? Those are the main things to consider. Robustness, basically, and future improvements. If you are not too concerned about those things, then that might be a good idea to consider that tool. But And I've seen it too much where a lot of startups are like jumping on like the last tool that they found on the internet just because like they think it's cool, or maybe they think like, oh, that should make things easier. Well, not necessarily, because this is a tool that not this is not a this is a tool, a framework that has been built up that has been built on like other more reliable tools. And so this is very particular and very difficult to find actual like community to help you solve the problem. Or I didn't even talk about that, but documentation, like the documentation, sometimes it's impossible to find things. This is I know that sounds crazy, especially today, because like we have so much information, but the documentation sometimes is so difficult that there are things that you can do that you're not going to find because the documentation is not done correctly, right? And so again, be careful. I guess the point of this video is be very careful about choosing your tool. And if you can avoid like using a tool that you don't know full well, like and that you've used before, like extensively, then don't try to avoid using a new tool, is kind of the point. So thank you for watching, and if you wanna be part of my content, if you wanna be part of my community, then click on the link in the description, and I'll send. If I want to share something with you, I'll send you an email. And thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.